Hey, Richard, welcome to the show today. As a way to get us started, why don't you give us some background on yourself?
Hey, Pat, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. Um, yeah, so I've been with Bunzel for about 17 years. And before that, I did a lot of uh, broker work, with food brokers and things like that. Prior to that, I worked with Marriott Food Service in their B&I division, which is business and industry. We did contract food service for like Hewlett Packard and Boeing and places like that. Um, Kept me very busy. So I've been working since I was 12 years old, started mowing lawns and, you know, doing that. But it's been good. I've been married for 30 years this September. Two boys, they're 23 and 26. So my wife and I enjoy our little condo living in Eugene, Oregon. Yeah,
You say you were married for 26 years,
30 years.
30 years. Okay, so you
Yeah,
are a good salesman,
it'll be 30 years this September. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
Sit
can
there
sell
that long.
myself every day.
Exactly. I know that feeling. I think every great salesperson had started their sales career in cutting lawns. I mean, I get more people say that's where I started my life. I'm going, oh my God, what are we doing wrong here? Right? We should be out there cutting lawns still.
Well, I can tell you, my sales career started when I was 6 years old. And I took my little wagon and I filled it with all the toys that I'd never played with. And pulled it around the city block and sold it to all the other neighbor kids.
We all have to start somewhere, right?
It was
What
kind
uh,
of
what
fun.
I always have to ask a question. You said you were into the brokerage. Does being a
Mhm.
broker, a past broker, does that help you out anyway? And they're totally different sales. I know that, but did that help you getting into sales? Did it help you launch your career in that, or what?
Yeah, I think being a broker is a bit different than what I'm doing now. It's similar, but it's different. Broker work is more end user work, right? So I was in the actual restaurants talking to chefs and still do a little bit of that, but what we do with redistribution is more handling the distributor end of things. So I might go in with a sales rep who calls on the chef, right? So I would say that the broker experience in my life gave me a lot of insight into how to deal with the end operators and things like that. A lot of relationship building too.
Yeah, and that's very important. And that's where you start to get seasoned. You get to be more seasoned salesperson, getting into that relationship and know more about it.
Yeah.
We spoke offline about how this new episode I'm going forward with is where we kind of talk about a topic that's kind of hot to the
Hmm.
industry today, and that's where I want to get started. We can dive into it. We talked about mindset and attitude, how important that is, and one of the things that has bothered me recently is that I haven't been really able. Whenever I talk to salespeople and sellers, and I have them on some of the courses that we offer here at Bunzel, is that I like to be able to communicate a little bit better to them. I can't get to their reasons why they got into sales and what their styles are like, and I think a lot of it has to do with mindset and attitude. A lot of times when you talk to salespeople, we have a lot of knowledge mindset, we have a lot of experience mindset, but sometimes we really can't break apart why we are selling, right? Whenever
Hmm.
I ask, either you're a seasoned salesperson or maybe you're a junior sales rep, tell me about, you know, your selling. How do you sell your style? And a lot of times they go, oh, well, it's about relationship. Okay,
Hmm.
there's a lot of platitudes. It's relationship. It's about ROI. It's about bringing value to the customer. And then I ask them things like, well, walk me through your last sale. How did
Hmm.
that go? Did you have to compete against somebody? Did you have the right brand? What if you didn't have the right brand or the right product? How did you work through that sale?
Hmm.
And they look at me sometimes like, are you crazy? I've been selling for 20 years. I know how to sell. But I say, walk me through it. And they go, oh, well, okay. I know Mr. Champion at this organization. That person, we have a great relationship. We golf, we have lunch all the time. He introduced me to Mr. Big Cheese at the organization. I made a pitch, did a great job, I got a sale.
Yeah.
But we really don't know how to sell. We don't have that performance mindset. What do you think?
Well, I think when you talk about mindset and you couple that with attitude, what I see mindset and attitude as a married couple holding hands walking down the beach because they're kind
Right.
of two different things, right? It's Venus and Mars, right? Mindset is something that I think we have developed over the years with our morals and our values and maybe our education and experiences that we've had in life. That's our mindset. That's we kind of have that. That's why it's called mindset, right?
Right.
Whereas attitude is something that we can choose to be positive. We can choose to be negative. We kind of can make that choice into how we go into a specific situation with our attitude. I'll give you a life experience for me. About 7 years ago, also when I started with Bunzel, I was kind of green in the sales stuff, So I went into a lot of sales um, calls nervous and scared. Oh, am I going to know the information? Am I going to quote the wrong price? What's my
Exactly.
manager going to say? Am I, so I went into a lot of, it was a fear-based kind of a sale. About 7, 8 years ago, I kind of sat back and I evaluated my mindset, my attitude, and I changed my mindset to kind of go in more of what the way I really am. And that is more relaxed. I'm going to be myself. I'm not going to try to perform in front of this customer. I'm just going to be real. I'm going to be Richard Trump. My attitude, positive. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell them, hey, I don't know the answer, but I can get it. If I quote them a wrong price, then hey, let's work together and work that price. And I got to tell you that when I did that, when I just relaxed, my customers felt that relaxation. They felt the realism. They felt the word I'm looking for is genuine
Right. Right.
person that I am. And
Absolutely.
I said, okay. And my sales went up. My relationships got stronger. It was an amazing thing. As a matter of fact, I think I got an award that year. And so I just decided that is how I've approached most everything, even in my regular relationships in life, with my wife and my kids.
Right. Right. So you took the more patient approach, the mindset to when you went into sales. Before we as salespeople, Richard, we have an enormous amount of pressure on ourselves to do what we've been hired to do, right? To make
Yes.
sales.
Make your goals. Yeah.
Make your goals, right? Every year. No one's ever said, hey, let's get in sales because we don't have any goals that are objectives. We are judged every day on what we bring to the party on a consistent basis year after year, right?
Yes.
And that tends to muddies the water a lot. It muddies the water in a sense that we have so much pressure. We go into these situations, these meetings with customers, and it becomes all about us. We put on our sales face. We get the happy ears. We want to sell them what we want to sell without asking them, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, what is your gap? What is
Yes.
it you want to achieve? And to your point, is that when you get into a situation where before you might have been nervous because you had all these expectations, right? You had to do this
Sure.
yourself.
Oh, I was going to tell them how to do it and what was right for them and da da da, instead of getting into their operating reality, right? And
Right.
finding what their needs were and just listening. Yeah. It's a lot about listening, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and my colleagues will probably roll over when they hear me say this, but this is another thing that I did about 7, 8 years ago is I decided to really concentrate on Stephen Covey's four quadrants, and
Right.
try as hard as I can, and it's not easy. And I tell people it's not easy, but to try to stay in quadrant two. The quadrant two It's important, but it's not urgent. It's those things where you're doing planning, your relationship building, all these things that you can do that give you the results of fewer crises, more control, and it just works for everything in life. It's not easy because I'll find myself go through a whole week in quadrant one where I'm just got the fire extinguisher out and I'm putting out fires and I'm
Right, right,
answering me emails and I'm going to meetings and I think I got to pull myself back over to quadrant two. It's very difficult, but it's very rewarding if you can stay there.
right. I want to go back to that point. That is one that's very interesting and just struck a note with me. How many salespeople plan a call? I mean, we've been doing this a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember many years ago in my life, before I really got structured, a little bit more structured in my selling, pretty much the epiphany that you had, same thing, got to get more organized, quit being, so worried on these calls. I had to start planning, having strategic selling plans, what we call it. And not a lot of us do that because we go and the first thing we say is, I'm gonna just wing this. I can wing this. I've done this before. I know exactly what
Right.
I'm doing. But the point is, what you just made is that do we do enough planning? Do you think we do enough planning as salespeople?
Oh, I think that we could do a lot more.
We get lazy,
Uh,
don't we?
yeah, I mean, I seriously suggested this recently that we start doing a little bit more role playing in our sales meetings. Just play off of each other. You be the customer, I'll be the sales guy. So we can, I mean, you can learn so much just from a short 3 minute, back and forth. So yeah, and it all comes down to that planning part, right?
Right.
And then going into the sales call with the right attitude that I'm going to listen to this guy. I'm going to know what his needs are. I can plan all day long and have my plan of attack. But when I sit down with the customer, that plan of attack might just go completely out the window because their needs might become something different than what I actually went in there to sell them, right?
Right.
We've seen that happen a million times.
And I love the fact that you said earlier that the attitude is part of the marriage, right? Between that and the mindset. Just recently, my wife and I went to Las Vegas. We saw Adele in person at a concert.
Oh, I love Adele.
It was just beautiful. It was a great concert. And at the very end, my wife said, "Hey," she goes, "Adele is always, her hair is always perfect. She has her team, her band, everybody in sync. She looks great. She does all the right things." She goes, "Do you think she performs or practices a lot and plans?" I go, "All the best do." And that's why she's one of the best. And to your point, is that if you want to be the best, you have to have that performance mindset. You are performing when you're in front of the customer, right? You have to
Yeah.
go in there with the right attitude. Number one, am I ready for this call? Do I have the right attitude? Am I upbeat? Am I positive? Do I have a lot of energy? Do I bring energy to this conversation? And also, I like to talk about appearance. Is my
Mm-hmm,
appearance,
mm-hmm.
appropriate? I don't think we do a
Yeah.
lot of that.
Yeah. 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 I hate to say it because I know a lot of people are going to see this, but I'm still kind of one of those sales guys who performs in front of the mirror so that I can see what's going on, right? And you got to be able to see yourself doing what you do and know that if, yeah, am I wearing the right shirt with a collar? Am I overdressed? Am I underdressed? Do I have, nose hairs sticking out? I mean, all
Exactly.
those
Yeah.
things that we have to kind of think about. A long time ago, back when I was like 16 years old, I had a guy by the name of George Dobbins. He ran the restaurant down in Lloyd Center in Portland, and I worked there as a busboy slash prep cook. And he pulled me aside one time and basically taught me that at a young age that you always want to check yourself, right?
Right.
You got to
Right.
check yourself, right? Check yourself, make sure that you're straight and that things aren't crooked and off base, or like that you got a hair going this way, or whatever.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but he taught me that at a very young age, which he's since passed away, but he was a great mentor to me.
Right. Right. Yeah, that judgmental side of us always comes out very much, especially customers, we do it ourselves. Human behavior. When somebody walks in the office, you kind of checking that person out and going, hey, is this person, the person I want to do business with, do they have a personality? Are they dressed well? We get that way, either customer or seller, we can get judgmental. And, people go, I don't know if that's true or not, but walk down the street, walk into a mall, and people are walking toward you. You got the tall person, the short person, the funny person, the child. We're already, our mind's going into this gear
Hmm.
that, hey, we're judgmental. And so we have to, check ourselves, like you say, make sure that we're not there. Just, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I want to bring up role playing because you brought it up and it was very interesting that you said that. Is that how many times? And I do this all the time whenever we're in our courses. I ask them, do you guys role play? Do you guys actually, when you're through with a call, let's say you're with your sales manager, maybe one of your cohorts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do a post-mortem? Do you say, hey, listen, I didn't get the sale today, or this deal is stalling. What do you think I did wrong? Do we
Yeah.
ask ourselves? Do we critique ourselves? Do you do that a lot, or
We don't do it enough.
right?
I encourage it. I do it. I have to do it. I have to reevaluate myself or do what do they call that when you're not recon, but when you're come from a sales call and you want to go back and see how, check the boxes. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Did I not listen? Did I? But I think it's very important when somebody sees this, they're probably going to say, okay, I think it's very important that we do those types of things. We really should be coming back, even if it's just your colleague who's the salesman. You go, hey, I went on this sales call. Would you mind running this through with me? What did I do wrong? What did I do right? What would you do? Those kinds of things. Because we learn from each other, right? We have some of the best salespeople in the industry at our
Yeah,
company,
we do.
and we can just learn from each other. All these little tiny things that each one of us does differently, that we can take all those little pieces, put them together, and we have super salespeople, right?
Exactly. So what your style, let's talk about your style for a second, okay, about
Sure.
your mindset and your attitude. What is it that you do well? Because I know you're a very successful salesperson. You have a lot of great customers. What is it that you do well? What do you think you do well?
Well, I think that, like I said before, I think that that relaxed mindset that I have, that I try to be authentic
Right.
with my customer. I always start my conversation with like a new customer. I always start the conversation like this. I say, look, I said, I might not always be the cheapest, but I'm always going to have product and I'm always going to be authentic with you and tell you the truth. I always start off like that because they need to know that I'm going to be upfront. I'm not a I'm not a used car salesman. I'm not going to sell you a pink widget when you need a purple popsicle stick, right? I mean,
Right. Right.
I just want to make sure that they know. So I think that's what I pride myself on, is being authentic and that type of person who's going to always be honest and upfront.
Right.
I'm not gonna be hiding stuff over here in the corner or putting stuff over here and putting not giving the full picture, right? So my customers really appreciate it too, I think.
I find and those are great points, and I find a lot of our sales, or our junior salespeople, or even our seasoned salespeople, even at times we get very complacent in what we do because it's just our jobs, and sometimes we don't look at it every time. Every time we go into that meeting with a customer, do we have a meeting with the customer? Should it be more of a conversation, like you just mentioned?
Yeah,
Yeah, right. We don't
yeah,
have those
absolutely.
convers. Yeah,
Yeah, just a back and forth conversation, just and it comes down to what we said earlier about getting in the operator's reality and listening to what they're saying, right? So many times I've seen or heard rumors of a salesperson going into a call and just, giving their giving their pitch, if you will, and not actually letting the customer talk about what's going on in their life, what's going on in their business. Will come out with those conversations as you talk about what's going on in their life or what's going on in whatever, right? I mean, you and I know that we've done this long enough that if you're talking to a customer and you can hear these tones of, yeah, maybe they woke up that morning and the kid was sick and the wife was grumpy, and you're going to get these, let them talk about that. I remember going into a sales call years ago. I won't mention names, but I went into the sales call and I would sit there for an hour listening to this person talk about nothing to do with business.
Right.
But we had a great relationship. And anytime I called him and needed to sell something, if I said, hey, I got this product, he goes, how many cases can I get? Right. I mean, it was just a done deal because I took the time to just sit there and listen to him talk.
Right. Right. And that's what a lot of times that's what we get paid to do, right? If we have a 30-minute meeting,
Therapists.
right, exactly. 30-minute meeting with the customer, and they're speaking 23 minutes of that time. Now I think you're successful because it gives you less time to screw up, but more time for the customer to tell you what they want, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Uh,
How important is it for you to is relationship more important than let's say product knowledge or expertise? We bring a lot of expertise as salespeople. And I think one of the traps we fall into is that we want to impress our customers with we go in that sales pitch tone,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
explain an hour about what our products and services do, but we don't ever ask the customer what their desired outcomes are. How important is relationship, do you think?
Oh, I think it's very important. I think, well, you'd asked, is it important to have product knowledge? Sure, it's important to know your products, but um, the thing about our products, what we sell, they're not too complicated. They're either going to hold something in it, or you're going to clean something with it. Um, I think that's important, more important to understand the customer, where they're coming from, because the product knowledge itself, hey, if you don't know exactly the whole thing about the product, you know that you can go and find it and learn it and bring it back to the customer with more detail if that's what they're looking for, right?
Right.
Does that make sense? I
Oh,
kind of,
absolutely.
yeah, I kind of went on
Absolutely.
a rant there. So,
We as individual contributors in sales, as being a seller, we tend to focus a lot on the knowledge portion because we think that's where our strengths are. If you talk to sales leaders, right, sales managers, sales directors,
mhm.
they're just recently talked to a sales leader in the organization, and I asked them the same question. What do you think? And they go, I really think that sellers need to have a balance. And I go, what is that perfect balance? They go, the
Mhm.
perfect balance is having enough product knowledge with sales knowledge plus industry knowledge. You have to have that blend when you go into a sales conversation or meeting with a customer. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, having a well-rounded kind of I mean, you're not always going to know everything about every piece of product. You're not going to know everything about what's going on in the industry, but we should have a good education of a rounded knowledge of what is going on, so that, you know, we have to be in the know, I guess, if you will. But at the same time, I think more importantly is knowing the what the customer's reality is, right? I mean, I keep
Right.
going back to that, but it's so true. We need to know where are they at? Where are their struggles? What is their gap? Where's the because if we're not in tune with that, more than what's going on in the industry or more what our product knowledge is, if we're not in tune with that, then we're not in tune with really what they need.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Um,
You
I
ask a
guess.
Yeah, no, 100%. You ask a customer today, if you just pull somebody aside and just, say, hey, give me an evaluation. What do you think is the biggest turnoff you find off with most salespeople? Typically, the number one answer is that they talk too much. They don't listen to what we have to say. Perfect example, at a call with a customer before, or with one of my sales managers many years ago, and he said, hey, listen, I'm going to put this new salesperson into your group, and I want you to just train them and give me some, information in 3 months how this person's doing. I go, well, what's the real reason behind this? Well, this person's dynamic. They're a grinder. They know how to grind down that customer. And after about 3 months, the sales leader came back to me and said, hey, how did Joe do? I said, well, you were right. He was a grinder. And he said, well, what else? I go, well, he's not very good at all. And he goes, well, why not? He goes, well, he just knows how to grind. He doesn't know how to sell anything. He hasn't sold anything for 3 months. And customers, were just, it's a big turnoff for them. Somebody grinding versus, like you say, being relationship focused, being in there trying to find out what their desired outcomes. This type of person spends more time worried about making that sale and telling the customer what they need versus, to your point, finding out their desired outcomes. And I think we do that a lot, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah. We get caught up in our own reality and want to give that back to somebody else. But truly, in a sales organization, we've got to be more in tune with listening,
right,
to what the needs are, for sure. Yeah.
So as early, Richard, in sales, right? And you talked about what you would probably do differently. Is there anything else that you would probably do differently? I mean, this stage in your career?
Not really. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to be 60 this year, and so I'm kind of.
I know that feeling, man.
I'm not sure that this old dog's going to learn a whole lot of new tricks, but you know, um, the mindset and attitude that I have right now is clearly working for me. In I think that I really just gonna kind of try to stay in quadrant two and
Right,
continue to just work, as I have been over the last several years. The changes that I made about 8 years ago have really caused things to flourish, not even professionally, but even at home. So,
right, right,
yeah, I mean, like I said, quadrant two works at work and at home.
right.
I tell everybody, go to quadrant two, go to quadrant two.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've been through our career international course here at Bunzel,
Oh yeah.
and you understand we get to that one module we talk about LAER, LAER, which is
Mm,
listen, acknowledge, explore, and respond with a customer, kind of like the quadrants you're talking about. And you spend a lot of time in that acknowledgement area, especially with family and friends and even your customers. That if they have an
absolutely.
objection, they have a concern, you just listen, you acknowledge it and just listen. And you got to go around the whole LAER many times, because
Hmm.
even though I teach it and I try to live by that principle, I catch myself all the time. My wife will tell you the same, is that I don't listen enough. We as salespeople don't listen enough. And for you to have that mindset, you know, open-mindedness, be authentic, show up to a meeting with the proper attitude,
Absolutely.
energetic, open-minded, let the customer speak, I think is bar none the best, mindset and attitude you can have.
I have to agree. It's working for me. So
And that's proof, and that's a good
I
thing.
think it would work for anybody else who wants to try it.
Yeah. Richard, great conversation today. Where do people go to connect and hook up with you?
Well, you can find Richard Trump on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Not so much Facebook, but you could probably reach me if you wanted to email me at richard.trump@bunzelusa.com.